Your quarter pipe will arrive in two different packages, the skins and transition cutouts, and also your pine struts with the steel coping. Your fasteners will come with it as well. Prime the holes with your screws, finger tight. It just makes the process quicker when you put it all together. And you do the rest. Lining it up. Flush over here. And screw. Next, you can install the struts at the bottom, thinnest part of the transitions cutouts. Same thing as before, you're going to repeat the process pretty often. Line it up nice and flush. And screw. It's kind of hard to tell in the video, but these are the locations of the double struts. One over here, middle one, and top one. We're going to start at the bottom and then work our way up. To make our quarter pipe extra strong, we're going to screw these double struts all together. There are no pre-drilled holes for this, so you sort of just estimate there and freehand it, you know? They just come along. If it looks a little bit off, you can kind of pull it up and screw it nicely, and that'll make it extra strong. And then on this one, just freehand it. You You can't go too wrong here. Even one screw would be good, but the stronger the better, right? And the top one, just come in from this side. And you want to get that screw to sink in nicely. There we go. Okay, so now we're going to install the backing blocks. These serve to strengthen the two back struts that have the wheels on. Alright, so prime the two extra holes with 50mm screws. Put your black backing block up against it and just drive the screws in. So we can check the two pre-drilled holes on the back of the struts. It's on all the points of the struts. Prime them with 75mm screws and then just drive them in. Straight into the end grain of that backing block. It just strengthens everything up for when you're rolling the ramp around. So place your coping in the notched out area of the transition cutouts. Bang, just like that. Making sure the big holes are facing outwards and upwards a little bit at about 45 degrees. Seems about right. And check that you have an overhang of 25 or 24 millimeters. Done. Okay, now the tricky part. So you take your 75mm screw, all right? You put it through the big hole and, there we go, through the small hole into the wood. It can be very fiddly, but once you get it, you get it. You're going to need to use the full length of your bit holder and then drive it all the way in. Carefully now, because you don't want to lose your bit. Oh, I feel it catching. Lacquer, tight. Please, bit, come out. Yes. And then you just do that all the way down, and then your coping is in. So take the top deck, place it on top of the ramp. Make sure the beveled side is butting up against the coping. Check that it's nicely in line with the coping over here. Prime your screw holes with 60mm stainless steel Torx drive screws and drive them in. You don't need to over tighten these screws too much, as stainless tends to snap when it's under too much pressure. And just repeat on the rest of the top deck. Now we're on to skinning the ramp. So we want to take the plywood piece, 1A. Okay, that's going to butt up against the top of the coping. And now you will see these thick pencil lines over here. These need to line up with the outer edge of the ramp, and then we know that it is in the right spot. Have your drill handy. Okay. Put it down, butting up against the ramp. And now I'll look at the line. Oh, it's pretty close. Oh, a little bit more. Definitely helps to have two people. Oh, a touch. Okay, we're on the money here. Now, you want to keep your foot on the ramp to keep it bent, the plywood piece. And now you take your 40mm screws and just put it in about 3 or 4 of these middle ones just to hold it in place. Very important, only drill your screws through the holes marked with the circle here. The rest of these other holes are holes from the screws from the subsequent layers. So we only want to put ones in the holes with the pencil marked on there. You can drive these in nice and tight so that they go through the surface. The head goes through the plywood there. There we go. They're not countersunk, it's not necessary. It just helps you get them super tight in here. So I'm just going to do these first ones here. And so it's in place. Now I can lift off and I know it's in the right spot. Okay, I'm going to prime the rest of these holes and then screw it all in. Okay, then place 1B below it, so it butts up against it. Just line it up at the edge here. There is a small gap that comes in from where we cut it, but that is not a big deal at all. And then drive in the screws. Okay, now we do the same with 2A. Alright, this goes on top of the first layer, of course. Butts it up nicely against the top. And now we just want to make sure that it's in line with this. With the piece underneath it. You can feel it with your fingers. There we go. Okay. Now we're using 50mm screws. Do the first middle ones, just a few to hold it in place. Okay. Okay. Then we can just prime the rest of the screws and drive them all in. 2B. Is much the same, easy, butt it up, make sure it's lined up here. There we go. Feels good. Then prime the rest of the holes and screw them. Alright, we're on to the third and final layer, the birch. the nice wood. This is that epic skate layer. It doesn't rot, super smooth, premium stuff. All right, it's marked on the reverse side. It's a little bit harder to bend this wood, but it's not too bad. Definitely would be great to have two people. And we're moving on to the 60mm stainless steel Torx drive screws. You don't need to tighten these too much because you can see the holes are countersunk and stainless steel can snap if you go too crazy. Okay, now we're going to be installing 3B. Okay, you can see this sheet has been routed so that we can put our steel transition plate to the bottom. All right, so this one's much easier. It just goes on, line it up. There we go, that's nice. And we can drive some screws through them. Easy. These Torx drives are an absolute pleasure to drive. They never slip. Never, ever, ever. Okay, the final step is to install the steel transition sheet. So you lay it into the routed section of 3B, nicely on the edge. You see how it butts perfectly up against that piece of ply. Okay. And then you have 3 rows here, 1, 2, and 3. The first 2 rows, we're going to use the 40mm long stainless steel screws. The final row down here, we will use the 30mm long stainless steel screws. So just getting it in place. You don't need to go over tighten as well, otherwise they can pull through these countersunk holes. If that happens on 1 or 2, it's not a big deal, but it shouldn't. And you continue with the rest. Remember, first row and second row, 40mm stainless steel screws. And the last row here, you can use the 30s, the 30mm stainless steel screws. And then you have your quarter pipe.